Hi, I'm Linda Coleman for the School of Profit, and welcome to the Consultant's Dilemma. W-2, 1099, or Corp-to-Corp contracts. I'm a tax professional, and a lot of my clients are consultants, and nearly everyone has had to deal with the question of how to structure their contract, either as a W-2 employee, a 1099 independent contractor, or a Corp-to-Corp contract. And that just means that the client is a corporation, the consultant has a corporation, and the client's corporation engages the consultant's corporation to perform the work. So why do you care about this question? Typically what happens is you've had your interview, your client is ready for you to get started, but they're going to ask you, how do you want to have your contract structured? And you're going to have to decide before you can start to work what the answer is going to be for this question. So you're going to have to learn an awful lot of information in a very short amount of time, and the decision that you make will have very far-reaching consequences. It will decide things like, what are your tax filing requirements? What form do I file? When do I file? What's deductible? What taxes do I pay? How much tax I pay? All these things are going to come into play depending upon the choice that you make. And if you decide that, I think I made the wrong decision, I should have picked A or B or C, I should have picked something else, you can't just make that decision on your own. Typically what's going to have to happen is you're going to have to renegotiate that contract with your client, because they're going to have to deal with you differently from their side as well. So how are you going to make the decision? A lot of people just use dollars and cents, and that's the only thing they look at. But for me, there's more to it than that. You should consider your personality, your circumstances, your goals, your risk tolerance. All of these things come into play, because if you save a lot of money, but you're spending a lot of extra time, or you're really frustrated, or you have a lot of additional stress, to me, those are not going to outweigh whatever money you save on your taxes, because life is just too short to deal with those kinds of issues if you don't have to. So you know yourself better than anyone else, so you are the one who's going to have to make the decision, and you are going to be the one having to weigh and balance the trade-offs of each different option, because each one is going to vary in complexity and compliance issues. And by compliance, I just mean stuff that you have to do, forms you have to file, things that you have to do to stay out of trouble. So, again, you're going to have to make that decision yourself. So the agenda for the course, we have 6 sessions. The first session is I call the big gotcha, which is, are you really an independent contractor? You might think you're an independent contractor, and your client might like to think you're an independent contractor, but state agencies, they may come to a different conclusion. And if you're audited or the client is audited, they may reclassify you from an independent contractor to an employee. And if that happens, it can have big ramifications for you. You might have to go back and change your tax return. Certain things may or may not be deductible. You can lose some of your retirement plan contributions, or they could be disallowed. So it's important that you understand from the get-go that you qualify as an independent contractor. So assuming you're an independent contractor, the next session is going to look at the simplest option, which is W-2 employee. Typically, you're not an employee of the client. You're an employee of some recruiting agency or headhunter or something like that. And we'll look at that, and we'll look at the pitfalls, the advantages of that option, and so that you can evaluate that. Then we'll look at what I call the red flag option. And this is the 1099 independent contractor. If you make this selection, you'll be filing a Schedule C, and a Schedule C is much more likely to be audited by the IRS. So we'll look at, in this session, we'll look at those issues, again, how much money you could save, and if the tax savings will benefit you enough to take on that additional audit risk. Then we'll look at the tax efficient option, Corp-to-Corp. If you're just looking at dollars and cents, typically this is the way to go. However, it's also the most complicated, and it's the most tricky. You have different elections you're going to have to make. You're going to have additional forms you're going to have to file, and it's a different ball of wax. So you need to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row with this option. So we'll go into that in detail in this session. And then we'll look at 3 scenarios. We'll look at 3 different people, and we'll look at their circumstances, their goals, and we'll look at the 3 different options for those 3 people and see which one works best for them. And maybe you'll see yourself in one of those individuals, and maybe that can help you figure out what's going to be best for you. Then finally, we'll have a conclusion where we're going to summarize everything we've learned in the course, some expected, some unexpected, and hopefully by looking at the whole course, you'll be able to make the decision for yourself, which is best for you, W-2, 1099, or Corp-to-Corp. With that, we'll go to the big gotcha, which is next. Are you really an independent contractor? And I look forward to talking to you about that next.